Hey Indians, this is Jeremy Fuel, Superintendent here at Mississinewa. Welcome to episode, I believe this is number 6. Today is February 17th, episode 6 of Mississinewa Matters. I want to talk about a couple things. We do have a regular scheduled board meeting tonight at 6:30. In lieu of, obviously, the referendum process, I do want to make people aware of the public participation at board meetings board policy. If you want to come to speak about board meetings, it needs to be about agenda items only. So the referendum process is not on the agenda item tonight. We are going to provide community members plenty of opportunity to be able to offer feedback and input, similar to what we had last Wednesday with our strategic planning session. I'm in the works this week of planning some events out. I'm actually meeting here in about 30 minutes with Nick Baker to work on finding some neutral locations within the community where we can have meetings in the mornings and afternoons during the normal business hour time, and then also setting up locations for the evenings for dates and times to meet with community members. The meetings during the day that we plan out, once we get those dates, times, and locations solidified, will be more of a roundtable discussion. I anticipate those groups will be a little bit smaller, just to be able to answer questions, take feedback and input from community members during those times as we continue to look to revise and revamp things moving forward. But a big thing I wanted to note is for tonight's regular board meeting, if you have something to talk about, it needs to be tied to an agenda item. There's forms that are available by the door as you enter the boardroom. You need to fill those forms out, and they need to be turned into me no later than 6:25. And you are welcome to offer any public comment related to any item on the agenda during tonight's board meeting. We are going to have tonight from 7:15 to 8 p.m. a referendum Q&A session that is going to be live streamed on Facebook. And so we'll present a little bit of information to start with, and then we're going to hear questions that people type in and do our best to answer those in that time from 7:15 to 8 o'clock. And we're going to do that every single board meeting. So every 2 weeks on Monday nights from 7:15 to 8 will be a great opportunity for you to ask questions, tune in just to be able to listen and gather facts and information related to that. So that's one thing I wanted to note for important for regular board meetings is if you're planning on showing up to talk about the referendum during a regular board meeting, it's not on the agenda tonight. So we are not going to take public comment related to that during the board meeting. We need to conduct our normal business matters that we have scheduled. We'll allot additional time after the regular board meeting for the Facebook Lives to specifically talk about the referendum only during those times. So just be conscientious, because we do a lot of staff spotlights, student spotlights during the regular board meeting. We want to be definitely conscientious and respectful of those people's time during that. So that's one thing that I wanted to talk about. A couple other things in today's session is these are some things that from talking to some board members and community members that I wanted to get through. At this point in time, I don't really have a good way to really answer some of those questions, but I'm going to do my best today just to address them. One that I heard today or over the weekend was that the school is going to increase taxes no matter what the community votes. Ultimately, the school legally can't do that. I'll find the Indiana code and have that put out and added to the frequently asked questions document eventually. I just don't have it today right in front of me. I will get that available. Fact of the matter is the school cannot do this project without the community's vote. It's a tax impact increase beyond the 80-cent debt service rate. And so the community votes for that and decides whether we do that or not. So there's no way that myself or the school board can unilaterally implement this tax increase without the community support. It's legally forbidden. So it can't happen. So that's the kind of layman's term in terms of that response. The other one that really caught me off guard this weekend was that I personally received some sort of a kickback for passing a referendum. I don't know where that came from, but again, that is not the case. I do not receive anything from that. And quite honestly, it's quite the opposite. If referendums don't go well, typically superintendents are looking for another job very quickly. If the process doesn't go through, because as you guys can see, it's a very emotional thing for community members. Very can be very negative, very negatively charged, and there's nothing that I personally gain or benefit from this process. It's just something that the community and the corporation has looked at for many years, and we are just bringing some options to the table for the community to decide whether we do it or don't do it. And so there's nothing for me, again, nothing for me that I gain personally from anybody. So, and I don't know who those somebodies would be that would cause me to gain personally from that. So again, it's quite the opposite regarding that. So I'm going to go through a couple of Q&As here today to be able to, let me zoom in on this, just to try to keep us up, because I haven't been able to do a few of these here last couple of days. So let's see here. How will the capital referendum funds be used? So the big thing, whether it's 87 million, whether it's 60 million, 50 million, 40 million, whatever it is, the big pushing point here is what to do with grades 6th, 7th, and 8th. The big thing with that is relocating 6th, 7th, and 8th, consolidating services to be able to long-term help the district operate within its means, and still without having to exclude those out-of-district students down the road. Why does Mississinewa Community Schools have a lower net assessed value per student compared to other Grants County schools and the state average? So again, it comes down to smaller geographical area. So if you look 23 square miles for us, compared to Marion has 56, Oak Hill has 120, Madison Grant 175, Eastbrook 138. Due to that small land area, there's limited taxable property. We're 75% residential, about 2% farm ground or agricultural. We do have a TIF impact here. Again, TIFs are great for bringing in industry here, but it does impact the debt service rate for us. So that AV, as it grows, it's kind of it's frozen in time for a period of time, typically about 20 years. Once 20 years expires, whatever that gain of AV is in that TIF district, that resets the value. So let's say over 20 years, the AV grows about 50 million, let's say, for that TIF district. After 20 years, that 50 million would hit our assessed value, which would impact our debt service rate. But again, we're in that kind of holding period. We do have some TIFs that are going to be falling off and being reestablished over the next 8 years. So that is going to help the debt service rate, but it's never going to help the debt service rate to the amount that's going to be needed to relocate grades 6th, 7th, and 8th. We do have a lower commercial and industrial base when you compare us to Marion. We have less agricultural ground when you compare us to Eastbrook, Madison Grant, and Oak Hill. So that does impact our taxable base. Looking at number 5, impact on school funding. Really, since Indiana school districts rely heavily on property tax revenue, support operations fund, and debt service fund, a lower net assessed value per student results in less revenue for school operations for the operations fund. So transportation, maintenance, and staffing, school safety is lumped into the operations fund as well. More challenges in capital funding projects. So without increasing tax rates or seeking alternative funding sources, there are a lot of challenges there. Greater reliance on state funding. So compared to districts with higher net assessed value per student, we just have that greater reliance on state funding. That state funding hits the education fund. We can transfer 15% from education's fund to operations fund to help mitigate some of those issues, but it is still an issue. So when you look at us compared to some of those schools like Madison Grant, Eastbrook, and Oak Hill, that is the net assessed value per acre over the last 4 or 5 years for agricultural ground. You see the growth there is, sorry, I have to click on something there. The growth there is quite a bit, over $1,000 since 2020 to 2024. So if you have 175 square miles or whatever some of those other districts have, and you have a lot of agricultural ground, that does benefit them. So that shows a 78% increase in the agricultural land base from 2020 to 2024. And again, we're only 2% agricultural ground here in Mississinewa Community Schools. So looking at that, what we're looking at doing is addressing the real issues that need a referendum approval. Again, we're not the 87 million necessarily. That's just looking at, hey, we had several facility studies done. We've had several architects, engineers, and project managers in to look at things, and they went through everything to lay out potential options. And so when looking at that, a referendum approval would also allow us to receive some tax levy from the TIF districts, which we don't currently receive, which does help benefit the everyday homeowner and the business owner that's not in a TIF district. It is going to help offset some of that as well. So I think that's all I'm going to address today. This document's fluid. We're going to keep adding to it. But for sake of time purposes, I think that's all we're going to go through. Reminder tonight, 7:15 to 8 o'clock, Facebook Live. You can find that on the Mississinewa Community School Corporation Facebook page. I believe it's tied to all of our other building pages as well. Stream in from 7:15 to 8 o'clock, ask questions. We'll do our best to answer those during that time. We'll take input and feedback to that. Any comments that are mentioned on there, we are saving and I'm putting in, and I'm addressing those questions in this FAQ document and making note of that as we adjust plans moving forward. So appreciate the input and feedback. If you have questions and you want to sit down, I am willing to sit down with anybody. Please give me a call, 765-475-6412. Shoot me a text. I will get back to you as soon as I possibly can. And really looking forward as we plan some of these roundtable sessions during the upcoming months. We will get that information out as soon as possible so that you can attend those. And then once we plan the next big strategic planning session, we'll get that information out as well. Hopefully I'll have information regarding those later this week. So hope this is helpful, and hope you guys have a great week. It's supposed to be a chilly week this week, so stay warm, stay safe, and keep your phones tuned on just in case we have to have any delays or cancellations this week. So have a great week, and go Indians.